But yeah, we compost all of our wastes, you know, from the store here. It all goes into the worm bins that you can see over here. I got an old bathtub, a tote cut in half. That tote had a hole in it, so I cut it in half, and over there behind the wheelbarrows, that's my composting system. So I got a constant flow of tea coming out of there that goes directly onto the banana trees. We've got the wood-fired brick oven here in the backyard, so all of the ash and all of the charcoal that comes out of the oven goes into the garden here. So, you know, zero export of waste from this particular site. Everything goes into the ground in one form or another.
Wow. Joe, did I just hear you correctly? You said you have a basically a constant IV of worm juice going to these bananas?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, let's check this out.
All right, sure.
That's a pretty cool idea.
So this one just got mature, and I've been slowly using the worm castings out of this one. So this is an old insert bathtub, and obviously it's got the drain on this end right here. So as rain falls through here and water falls through here, the effluent goes onto the ground and feeds this banana patch behind me here. So it's automatic fertilization coming out of this bin, and I still get this good high quality earthworm compost. And obviously we use a lot of eggshells, there's charcoal in here, there's ashes in here. All of it goes into the garden in one form or another. And then here, a little bit larger system.
Oh wow. And that's just like a 70 or...
Yeah, so that's a 275 gallon tote.
One of those big ones.
Half, one of the big ones. And these are great because they've already got the drain built into it.
IBC, yeah.
So you get this lovely goodness right here.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it doesn't really stink, you know, it's just, this one is a little raw, being that the population of worms isn't really high, so it's mostly compost tea rather than earthworm tea is, you know, the effluent, but it is very mild in its, what would I would call it, heat level. You can't burn a plant with this stuff. I could take this whole, you know, bucket right here and dump it on one tomato plant, and it's not gonna kill it. It's not gonna use it all, but it's not gonna kill it, so you can't burn a plant with this. You make chicken manure tea or bat guano tea, you can kill a plant with too much of that. So this stuff goes a long way, and you can dilute it. I could fill that up with water and water the whole garden one time with the what that's, you know, maybe 3 gallons that's in there right now.
How long does it take to get about those 3 gallons?
Well, you know, if it's raining on a regular basis, it'll fill up really quickly.
Yeah.
Every time it rains, this comes up. But if it's empty and I need some, I just water it.
And get it to come
and
through.
Water goes through. So you just make your tea that way, and you get a little oxygen in there from the watering of it and everything. So I don't bubble it. I never oxygenate it. It doesn't need it. That's electricity that I don't want to use, kind of thing. So I just make it as simple as possible. And this one doesn't have a collector underneath it, so it's going on the ground and it's feeding this elderberry right here. And you can see how huge this elderberry is. And
look at this massive tank. That's your cistern, huh?
Yeah, so yeah, we can take a look at the tank. And this is connected to the store. So we've got 1,600 gallons here. This is the roof washer, so we got 55 gallon right here. This catches the first 55 gallons of water that rinses off of the roof in the first rain. So between rains, detritus accumulates on the roof and it gets washed off in the first inch of rain, so that gets caught in here. So this is very nutrient dense water in here that I use to water the garden beds that are close by. And then this tank is attached to that 2-inch pipe that goes all the way to the back of the property. So all the way back to the banana garden we were in earlier, and 2 spots in between where I can open this up and flood the yard whenever I need to from this. And it's all gravity fed, there's no pumps. It's all, you know, filled from the stacks. If you can see the PVC stacks on the building there, I just replaced the down tubes with PVC. So they don't even have to be glued together because there's no pressure except for the gravity weight of the water in there. So those fill up and they are higher than this point right here, so the overflow from those pipes goes directly
levels
into
up.
the tank.
That's slick. Wow.
Yeah, it works great, and yeah, like I said, no pumps, no glue really necessary unless you've got some loose fittings and you can glue them together. But it makes it so you can take it apart, put it back together. It's modular, you can move it around. I just recently moved this tank here from over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can see it was sitting.
That was the old spot?
That was the pad that it was in right there, yeah, and it was sitting on top of the drain tube for our septic tank, so the weight of it ended up compromising the drain tube.
Oh, wow.
So I had to move it to where it wasn't sitting on top of some other plumbing.
I know people are going to ask it. It almost flew over my head. You said this was nutrient dense.
Yeah, because it catches all of the bird poop and all of the pollen and all of the stuff that gets rinsed off of the roof in the first inch of rain. So between rains, all of that stuff that's dry gets collected on the roof, and in that first inch of rain, all of that stuff gets rinsed off. And then after this fills up, it basically just stops the water from filling up in here, and it passes on and goes into the tank. So this catches the first bit of dirty water. So it's more nutrient dense than the water in here. It all has some in it.
Yeah,
because my gutters have leaves in there, and the pollen gets in there because it's microscopic, and so all of that gets in here. And when the pollen falls, all of this water gets anaerobic. It stinks, but that's good fertilizer.
Wow.
So that we don't drink this, even though you could filter it and still drink it. All of this goes for irrigation as it is right now.
I never even considered that as a source of nutrition. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's kind of,
Absolutely.
you got the metal roof, so there's
Absolutely.
no chemicals in it either.
And,
Wow.
and these actually have a screen basket that you can insert in here that is made to clean the water. But you can put leaves and fertilizer in there, so as the water falls over it, this could be compost tea.
Wow.
The whole thing could be compost tea. Every time the water flows through there, you can just basically rinse all of that compost tea into the major container. And because this is a 2-inch pipe, it does not get clogged. The overflow just goes behind the outhouse right here and flows downhill.
Outhouse.
Yeah, so we got a composting toilet in the outhouse right here. So we are a distributor for Sunmar composting toilets here at the store, so we sell them. So we have a demo that's actually a functioning demo that is a composting toilet, and it's not your traditional kind that separates urine and feces. It's a big barrel built into the toilet, and I'll show it to you, and it's a rotator drum, so you can actually turn the thing and oxygenate it, and it keeps it nice and dry. And one of the great things I like about it is that the combination of urine and feces in a dry material actually makes a perfect compost. So all of that goes into the worm bins. The worms convert it into, worm castings and compost, and then it goes into only tree plantings. I don't use it in the, the annual veggie gardens or anything like that. I only put it on the trees after it's been broken down by the worms. So there's no contamination possibilities or anything like that. And it's a pretty simple unit.
This isn't some homemade composting toilet,
No,
huh?
This is a fabricated system. So there's a collection drawer at the bottom. There's a drum that can be rotated to turn the mixture inside. And so the vent stack pulls moist air through the system and keeps it dry inside. This thing's been being used now for 3 years. It never smells bad. We clean it every once in a while. Obviously, we empty it out every once in a while. This is the collection drawer for the finished material. This is the dry material that goes into it. Free sawdust, pine shavings, leaves, coconut coir, anything like that. Peat moss can be used in this particular system. It does have a microbial mix that activates the decomp. Like EM1 can be used. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And this is basically a microbial mix that is a aerobic microbial mix that keeps the system from going anaerobic and smelling foul. So it helps break it down. It helps to clean the system. And once a year I empty out this entire system, clean the whole unit, and start over again. So no water necessary. Obviously it's a larger unit than you would have in a normal bathroom.
It's big, yeah.
It's big, so you have to build for it accordingly, but that's why I just built it outside. They make these units that have tanks that are separate that can go underneath the house that are more closely, sized for a normal size bathroom kind of a thing. But it's a really great unit. I've never had any major problems with it except for overuse and under application of dry material. If you don't put enough dry material in there, it's obviously going to get wet. It's going to start to stink.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Right. So
what's the brand again, Joe?
Sunmar.
Sunmar. You're a distributor. How long have you had it in here?
This one has been here for about 3 years.
3 years now.
Yeah.
Cool.
And again, all reclaimed material. This is old fence boards, old pallets, old barn door, old plastic from a greenhouse, all free found materials. In the center over here, we've got a perennialized, I call it, or reseeding Seminole squash. I planted a Seminole squash there 5 years ago. It comes back every year by itself.
Tropical pumpkin. Wow.
Yeah, the tropical pumpkin. It comes back every year. It's not extremely productive in that spot because it's fairly shady here in this spot in the backyard, but as you can see, it's doing pretty well. So we compost in spot there. We got this palm tree trunk that's hollowed out in the middle here.
What?
And I put my compost in there, and the worms actually move in from the garden bed area around and move into the bottom of that, and they eat the material and they take it and they distribute it into the garden for me. So it's like composting in place, or an earthworm condo, some people call it. So you can see it's mostly coffee grounds, but if I dig way down in here, it gets gooier and gooier towards the bottom. Wow. And that's just soil building action going on right there in the garden. And the palm tree trunk actually lasts for a long time. It's saturated with silica, which is one of the great, micronutrients that we're lacking in a lot of our soils. So as it breaks down, it's slowly releasing nutrients into the garden bed and composting in place. So I don't have to haul nutrients into the spot. It does it right there in where we want.
All right, Joe, what's growing on?
So what we got going here is a fertilizer plant called Comfrey. It's a Symphytum officinale, and it is a dynamic accumulator that we use for fertilizer. It's also medicinal. One of the old names for it is knit bone, so it can be used as a poultice on scrapes, scratches, bruises, sprains. Very medicinal in that application, but it concentrates nutrients in the leaves and makes a huge amount of biomass throughout the year that we use as a mulch or as a compost tea product. So you can take these leaves, soak them in water for 24 hours, and they basically melt, and it becomes this green slime that is extremely nutrient rich, and because it's in a water form, it's directly accessible to the roots of the plant. So basically soak it in water for 24 hours, pour the slime water over the plants, and you end up with these beautiful, healthy, vigorous growing plants, and it's basically free. Once you've planted it, you don't have to buy that fertilizer ever again. Same goes for another plant that I'll show you. The Tithonia diversiflora is the perennial sunflower. It's also a dynamic accumulator of potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen, and can be used as an exclusive fertilizer all by itself. So in combination, we basically are growing all of the fertilizer that we need here, besides all of the compost that we make. All right, so here we got Tithonia diversiflora, or perennial sunflower, which I'm growing for ornamental, obviously, but also for fertilizer. And if you look here, this has been trimmed back about 3 times this year. I have hacked this back and chopped up the stems and leaves and used it for fertilizer on this banana patch behind us here. And it just continuously grows back. It's very vigorous. You could take this stem and stick it in the ground and it will grow. You won't have to do much with it except water it occasionally. You can see all these little bumps on it. Those will become roots. Very easy plant to grow, and it's beautiful. And it also can be a little invasive. If it falls down and touches the ground in a really happy spot, it will root, it will grow. So it does take some maintenance to keep it pretty, but it's definitely well worth it, being that once it's planted, an endless supply of free fertilizer. And this is growing in extremely wet soil. As you can see here, standing on the ground, this is still mud, and we have not had rain in a month.
Gosh.
So there is no shortage of moisture in this soil. But surprisingly short on nutrients. You have to add some nitrogen to this soil to get good growth out of it. I've been surprised at how quickly it loses its nitrogen, but that's where this comes in. You replace the nitrogen with these decaying leaves and you're good to go.
All right, what do we got growing on here?
So we got a couple of different varieties of sugarcane in here. I've got some heirloom red and black sugarcane that was actually originally planted inside this bed, and it has escaped this bed, and you can see here this cane has rooted itself into the ground.
Touching down like the Mexican sunflower.
Yeah, and you see it, yep, and you see it, a little sprout coming off the side of it right there. It's about to send up a new shoot. So this one is actually spreading, which I never knew that sugarcane would do unless it's in this happy spot in this soil that it absolutely loves, this really, really wet soil. So it's one of the plants that I have discovered grows really well in this dank soil, whereas some of the other plants that I tried to grow in this wet soil, like the roselle, they didn't make it. They croaked out. It was too wet. But the sugarcane, even though I don't really have a sugarcane press, we use it for nibbling on. The kids love to come back here and cut it up. I actually have to hack it up a couple of times a year to keep it under control. So what I started doing was just tossing it in my compost pile. Well, sugar is an activator for microbes. They feed on that stuff. It gets hot. It is like concentrated nitrogen in that sugar. So it is one of the best plants I've found for making compost with if you have excess of it.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And because of the way it's grown traditionally, or conventionally, I should say, it's very environmentally hazardous. I mean, around Lake Okeechobee in South Florida, where Big Sugar is taken over, they're toxifying the entire waterway down there. with all the fertilizers and everything. What I've realized is this doesn't need fertilizer. It is a fertilizer.
Yeah.
So you take the pressings, the bagasse, after you've crushed it and sucked all the juice out of it, and use that as a compost accelerator. You're making fertilizer with the plant that you're needing to buy fertilizer for. So I've realized that sugarcane is a great one in swampy areas like this, because it'll just take over and all of that excess gets chopped up. If you have a chipper shredder or something like that, if you're doing it on industrial scale, you're breaking it down that much faster, and you're making this gooey mush that's going to break down and just become the best fertilizer in the world. So it's got a lot more uses than just, you know, chewing on the, you know, stalks and getting the sweet juice out of it. That sweet juice is a great nutrient.
Does the cold slow it down at all, Joe?
Not down here.
Not down here.
No,
okay.
in this little bowl where you would think it would actually
Even in a
get
low
really
spot,
cold.
yeah.
Because the ground level doesn't ever get cold. It might get top bit just like the bananas do, but it comes back with a vengeance. I mean, I have chopped this back 3-4 times a year, and it just comes back. If you can see behind you there, Pete, this is a cluster that I yanked.
Oh, that one's full, yeah.
Look at this guy coming up right here. Look at the size.
Someone's coming up like bamboo.
Yeah, totally. And it's just, it's super thick. That's probably one of the thickest canes I've seen. And I thought I killed this guy. I hacked it back to nothing, and I thought it was gone. And you just can't stop this stuff. So this sugarcane is a really useful crop when it comes to that. And I've also seen some folks using this as bean trellis. So you put some nitrogen fixing beans in here. If it's in dry enough soil, I don't know how well the beans would do in this soggy soil, but it can be used as a vertical space trellis growing as well. Also back here, had the moringa got knocked over in the hurricane, and now it's a sprawling, spreading moringa tree that's kind of growing through all of this sugarcane. So the tree roots are way over there, but it's kind of laid down horizontally, and all this leaf material is coming up vertically. So I'll go through here and harvest one more time before it gets too cold and try and stand the trunk back up. But the moringa doesn't seem to mind the wet soil either, which I thought it would. So it was an experiment to plant the moringa back here, and it seems to be doing well. The problem is loose root balls.
So they fall over.
When you're in that wet soil, your root balls are going to be a little less stable, and so you have a little bit more of a hard time letting the tree get tall. But if you keep it cut short and keep it shrubby, you're not going to have a problem with it falling over, and you get more leaf production and all that stuff too.
Cool. Holy crap, mind blown here. Joe's got a lot of cool stuff going on. Joe, I mean, between the oven, the composting toilet, I mean, the worm castings, I think we got a lot of takeaways here for everybody. You know, any failures? I mean, any learning experiences to share or anything like that? Like things that didn't work out?
You know,
or we just learn from those?
Yeah, you learn from the things that didn't work out. I mean, you just have to do it. You have to experiment with it. You have to put stuff in the ground. Don't procrastinate because you think you might be doing something wrong. Make errors. You know, obviously do some research, get to know the size of the plants that you're working with. That's the most important thing. Spacing and mature size is the biggest deal there is in permaculture. The only major mistake I think I've ever made, class 1 error they call it in permaculture, was on my original permaculture property, which is just a few blocks from here. I planted clumping bamboo along my fence line that separated my property from my neighbor's property. And even clumping bamboo can get very, very large, and the clumps can get 15 to 20 feet wide. So if you put a clump 5 feet away from a fence and it gets 15 feet wide, it's going to be 5 feet into your neighbor's yard. So that is something that I would consider a major error because of the amount of work that it took to remove that bamboo from that fence line. I mean, even the clumpers are very difficult to dig up. You can dig and dig and dig, and you might not get it all, and we didn't, and it's growing back already, and it's going to take a second go round of digging to remove that because it was invading my neighbor's property. So you have to take those sorts of things into consideration. But if you know people that are growing them, you've seen them mature in the ground, do your research and you'll know better where to put things, and you won't have to go through that particular experience.
Doesn't that sound familiar? I had the same takeaway with bamboo, so all right.
That's why most people don't like bamboo, unfortunately.
Cool. Yeah. Well, check Joe's site out. I know you guys are going to love these videos, have questions. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share, and don't forget, pound dirt.